Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery. Today is Monday, July 10th, 2023. We get together with our distribution partners and now our clients on a daily basis, most Mondays through Fridays, to talk shop, talk about strategies, tips, techniques, share success stories, and support each of you. If you are one of our small business consultants and or state directors, you should have received this invoice over the weekend, and you can see what we're going to be discussing today. We're going to talk about some scripting for the credit and funding program. So taking a step back, each of you should have a free replicated website. If you don't, get with us and we'll get that fixed. Free. On the free replicated website, it has multiple pages for the different resources that you and I, that we collectively offer to the marketplace. One of which is the credit and funding program. We're going to bring attention to it today because it is, I think, needed, it's valuable, and there's a little bit of a different way to position it when you're taking it out to the marketplace, whereby you should have very, very good response, very good results. So let's go through that today. And at any point you have any questions, comments, concerns, just type it into the Q&A box. It's like a chat function of Zoom, and we'll get to your questions, comments, concerns. The credit and funding program is an effective resource to help clients improve credit and get at least $100,000 in funding, guaranteed. So the credit and funding program is different than, for instance, our access to capital, because embedded in the credit and funding program is the word credit. So are we working with the client to help them get funding? Yes. But what we're doing also is to help them get positioned for funding by helping them improve their credit. We will help them improve their business credit if needed. We will help them improve their personal credit if needed. So again, on your replicated site, you should have a website, you should see a page. It says credit and funding. It has a fairly succinct description, it has an embedded YouTube video, just a couple minutes. I think it's 5 minutes if I recall. It's really effective in describing what it is that we do. So if you're not familiar with what's on your free replicated site, I would suggest that you become so. And then if you're not familiar with the credit and funding program in a complete and thorough way, I encourage you to go to your replicated website and review the credit and funding page. Fair enough? Because today's goal isn't to replicate that, it's to talk about scripting. But if you don't have that foundational knowledge, you probably won't be as successful. So it's always important to identify what's in it for the client, and then also what's in it for you. And so that's the second sentence here. As you enroll individuals into the credit and funding program, you're paid twice. You're paid $100 of their enrollment fee. They have a refundable setup fee of $999, which we can finance. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But the bottom line is you're paid $100 on the front end. You're also paid 3% of the client's capital raise. Now you might ask, well, last week we were talking a lot about the $100,000 primary trade line. How does it fit into this? Well, that's a good point. It very well may be that the clients could benefit from that trade line, and we would understand that once they're enrolled in the credit and funding program and we're looking at their credit profile. So you could very well go out to the marketplace with the primary trade line, like we spent a lot of last week talking about. That's fine. Or you might start with this. Pros and cons. Well, I think pretty much any reasonably intelligent adult understands that credit matters, right? It impacts our access to housing, transportation, and of course, amongst other things, business funding. Trade lines are powerful, but not everyone really understands what a trade line is or does or how it benefits. So you could certainly make the argument that if you led with a credit and funding program, 9 times out of 10, then you could circle back once they've enrolled in this and then also help them with a primary trade line. But it's up to you. So you can go out to the marketplace based upon your preference. Okay, so today's training is going to provide you simple and effective scripting. I think sometimes there's a conflict that we believe that with the replicated website, you have the content that you would need to assimilate to share the message with others. But I think sometimes some of our distribution partners want specific scripting. So we're going to give you today some specific scripting. And again, I emailed this agenda out to each of you over the weekend. So not only are we talking about it and you've seen it, you should have it. This highlighted yellow here, I think, is crucially important before we move ahead. I believe in today's marketplace that we must understand two things. Most people do not want to have any upfront expense. They don't want to have upfront expense. They want to see the benefits first and then pay later. And so I'm going to show you how we can do that with a credit and funding program. But this concept applies in many things in life. So let's say that you're going to go buy a new car. And so you could certainly say, hey, I want 0% down. I don't want to put any money down on the automobile. I'll make my payments later. I want to drive off the lot in my new car. I want to enjoy the benefits. I will pay later. And that's what I do. And that's probably what you do when you buy a car. Don't want to put any money down. We need to take that same type of mindset when we're offering their credit and funding program. We know that most people don't want to have upfront expense. You might say, well, there's a conflict there, right? Because Tom, you said there's a $999 refundable setup fee, of which you're paid $100 of that. Yes, but we can finance that, which we're going to get to in a moment. So you and I can deliver the credit and funding program out to the marketplace. They don't have to have any upfront expense. They can start to see the benefits now and they can pay later. If you take that mindset, I think you're going to enroll a lot more clients than otherwise. Now, that's not to confuse the fact I'm not saying or inferring the credit and funding program is free. It's not free. I don't think it needs to be free. I just think that we need to avoid clients having any upfront cost. I think we do need to allow the clients to see benefits first and pay later. So I'm not saying it's free. If it were free, you wouldn't be able to make the $100 up front. You wouldn't be able to make 3% of the client's capital raise. It's not free, but they don't need to pay anything up front. You with me so far? So our focus is taking out to the marketplace the credit and funding program where they have no upfront expense. They can see the benefits now, pay later. Good? Okay, let's move on. So here we have the recommended scripting. Let me make it just a bit smaller so we can see the whole script. We've broken it down into 3 parts. Now, do you have to follow the scripting? Of course not, but this works. So there's the intro portion, there's the explanation of the benefit portion, and then there's the call to action. Now you can use this in total or in part, but it works. So let's go through it. And again, you should have this in your inbox. We emailed this to each of you over the weekend. All right, so my name is whatever your name is, obviously. So why do we start with saying your name? It makes it more personal. I know a lot of us like emailing and texting and posting, but when it comes to money, people often like to interface with another human being. So do you have to talk to them? No, you could essentially move this into written communication, whether it be email or text, but just keep in mind, a lot of times people would like to talk to a real person before they sign up. Hi, my name is Madison Hope, and I'm contacting you to see if you qualify for a grant subsidized program designed to improve your credit and access at least $100,000 guaranteed. So that's our one sentence intro, because what we know is that first few seconds of a conversation, or in this case, the first line of written communication, is going to be incredibly important to either get the other party engaged or they'll be dismissive. And I think this is solid, right? We're introducing ourselves by name. People like grants and grant subsidized programs. Improving credit makes sense. Accessing capital, something that most entrepreneurs want. And we take the risk out of it for the client. It's guaranteed. So that's a strong first sentence. What's your feedback on that? Let's pause there before we move further. So Alonzo and Charles and Eddie and Jeanette, Ken, Sharita, Lon, Terrence, we have 211 of you on here. I can't read off all the names, but what's your feedback on that first sentence as an introductory statement? So certainly it's not all descriptive. It's one sentence. It's the intro, right? And so what we're trying to do is to get the other party engaged to hear more. All right, so all of you have positive feedbacks. I think it's good as well. So now we want to take a bit more control of the conversation. We want to see if they qualify. So let's go into the second sentence of the scripting. To qualify for the grant, you must agree to accept a minimum of $100,000 to start or grow a business. Now let's pause there. So when we applied for this grant and we received this grant, the premise was quite simple. We can work with any entrepreneur, no matter of their credit scores or their time in business, no matter of their industry, as long as it's legal. There's no prerequisites. We can work with anyone and help them get at least 100,000. Now, many clients want much more than 100,000. Will we work with them to get more than 100 if they want more than 100? Sure. But can we make a blanket guarantee that we can get anyone? Like client I was talking to immediately before the Zoom, he wants 5 million to start an import-export business. Well, great. So he wants 5 million. So will we build the package and will we pursue 5 million? Absolutely. Will we guarantee 5 million? Absolutely not. The grant we applied for, the grant we received, the program is based on a minimum of 100. So you're going to have people that see this two different ways. Some people say, well, that's great. Yeah, 100,000 would really help me. Others, oh, that's not enough. But we're not going to make a commitment to get them more than 100 because there's so many variables. We can control enough of the variables legally and ethically to get them at least 100,000. We cannot legally and ethically control enough variables to guarantee them 5 million. So that's the reason behind it. But let's go back. So second sentence in the scripting. To qualify for the grant, you must agree to accept a minimum of 100,000 to start or grow a business and need assistance with improving credit. Well, why is that second portion there? Because it's the credit and funding program, right? If they didn't need help with credit, that's not the right resource for them. The credit and funding program builds in free assistance in improving credit. Well, let's talk more about credit. Why does credit matter? Well, at the highest level, the most strategic level, credit matters because it's a reflection of how we, either us individually and or our businesses, have paid our bills in the past. Makes sense. No one knows what the future holds, but the best predictor of the future is the past, especially the recent past. So if an applicant, a participant, a small business doesn't have strong credit, personal or business, we don't care. We're going to help them legally and ethically improve that. And we've got arrows and tools, arrows in our quiver and tools in our tool chest to do that legally and ethically. So we explain for the grant, we track outcomes. So you would need to allow us to track your results. When I worked for the SBA, we did the same thing. This is kept confidential. So we're not releasing that, oh, Joe Smith received $225,000 at 6.8% interest. We're not revealing specifics, but we're tracking outcomes. So we might say client A received $225,000 at 6.8% interest, but we would never release individual information. So that we just need them to know that if they're not willing to allow us to track outcomes, then they don't qualify. But what would they need to qualify then? Quite simply, if they agree to accept a minimum of 100,000 to start or grow a business, if they will agree that they need help with credit and they agree to track outcomes, then they're in like Flint. Simple enough. And I don't think you'll get a whole lot of pushback. So let's pause again. On second paragraph, we're letting them know that there's qualifications for the grant subsidized program, and we're clearly stating what those are. Any questions, comments, concerns on paragraph 2? Okay, so let's move on. Paragraph or sentence 3. So now we're going to ask them, would you like to have a 700 plus credit score and a minimum of 100,000 to start or grow a business? If the answer is yes, then we move forward. If the answer is no, then, well, I'm sorry for taking your time. Thank you for a few minutes and have a great day. All right. But I think most people are going to say, yeah, I'd like to have a high credit score. Yeah, I'd like to have at least 100,000 to start or grow a business. Probably won't get many no's from that. But we want them to say yes, because that psychologically is the permission to continue with the discussion and describe how it works. If they don't say yes to this, then why bother? Now, they might certainly want to know more, but that's what we're going to do next, is go into more information. So that's our quick intro. Again, this can be put into writing to prospects via email, via text. I've seen some of you have outstanding success doing text blast with essentially these 3 sentences. Well, I guess it's 4 sentences, but these 3 paragraphs, just this, and get them to respond. If they respond yes, then we move on to the next section, right? If they respond no, no need to. All right, so now let's explain the benefits. Section 2. With a credit and funding program, we are 100% committed to your success with guaranteed results. I like success to be bolded. Of course, if you're texting them, to my knowledge, text can't have bold letters, but that's, we're creating the expectation that we are here to generate guaranteed results, and we're focused on their success, because that's what's true and that's what they want to hear. But we need to define success, right? What does success mean to us in the program? Our definition of success for you in the credit and funding program equals what? Better credit and at least $100,000 of funding, cash in your pocket. Now, you could argue that you could just stop with 100,000 in funding, but the illustration, the very subtlety of this phrase, cash in your pocket, will connect with some people. So I would recommend using this sentence as it is. So we're defining what we're doing for them, simply put in one sentence: getting them better credit and at least 100,000 in funding. Who has questions or comments on our definition of success before we move on? All right, Timothy brings up the point, well, we're not defining what better credit is. Well, here's the truth. We need good enough credit, good enough to get the funding that we're going after. And so that could be based upon business or personal. I would leave that generic because we don't know where they're at. We don't know the specifics yet of the capital raise that we're going to go after. Because when we talk about 100,000 in funding, what you and I know is that there's not just one type of funding. There's many different types of lenders and types of capital. We need to match what the client needs and qualifies for. We don't know that yet. They've not enrolled. We've not collected any of their data. Is it going to be an SBA loan or is it not? Is it going to be a line of credit? Maybe they're wanting financing for real estate. Maybe they're wanting financing for equipment. None of that matters yet. But what we're doing is clearly identifying what our definition of success is. And I think you're going to get a warm response. If they know that our goal our commitment, our guarantee is to get them better credit and at least 100,000 in their pocket. I think you're going to have some heads nodding up and down. Make sense? Okay, move on. We will help you improve your credit. So now we're digging another layer deeper. We got to describe how, because if you don't describe how, it could sound too good to be true. Nothing that we talk about is too good to be true. Nothing that we talk about is untrue or obviously illegal or immoral, but we're building up to it. Now we're going to talk about how this is possible, because they may have some reservations. They may think that that's not possible. So let's describe now. We will help you improve your credit by removing negative and by adding new positive trade lines. A somewhat generic statement, but you and I know that is the formula for better credit, whether it be on the personal side or business side. What is the formula for better credit? You remove negative and you add positive. That's how we get high credit scores on our personal and or on our business. And that's what we do with the credit and funding program, is we help them remove negative and help them add positive. So that sentence is important. And then we move on to the next sentence. We can even add a $100,000 revolving trade line to your credit reports if you like. So that is a nice opening for the conversation that we had last week regarding the new $100,000 trade line. I was just talking to a client this morning, Anthony, real client. He's not a distribution partner. He's not on the training. So Anthony would like to move forward to go to funding. His credit score, personal credit score, is low. His business credit profile is very, very light. And so what we agreed to do this morning is we're going to add a $100,000 revolving trade line, both on his personal side and on his business side. On the business side, it makes the business look credible. And then on the personal side, it's going to reduce his revolving utilization, because right now his revolving utilization is too high. But by adding a $100,000 trade line, it's going to dilute it and reduce it considerably, allowing his score to skyrocket. So then we conclude this paragraph with, we guarantee that you'll qualify for at least 100,000 in funding. We've talked about that earlier, why that's true, why that's ethical, and so forth. But let's just follow through again. So we did our introduction, and then now we're explaining the benefits. This can be shared with them in writing or verbally. Tell them we're 100% committed to their success. We describe success, and we help them understand how this is possible, briefly. All right, Ken's asking, do we do credit repair? We do not do credit repair. We work with a group of paralegals to remove negative, and then we help them add positive. We are not a credit repair company, and that's simply put. Yeah, now some of you do credit repair, and if you do credit repair, that's fine. But we're not a credit repair company, but we definitely can help remove negative with our paralegals and add positive, work with the client to help them qualify for at least 100,000. So the removing the negative, we don't charge for that. It's free. It's free. Okay, so let's move forward here. There is no upfront cost. So so I think at this point, probably the prospect is interested. They're probably intrigued, but often the question is, oh, what's this going to cost me? And so we want to be transparent. We want to be honest. So what we're going to do is start with kind of dismissing the concern. Well, don't worry, there's no upfront cost. And then we continue. Now, there is a refundable setup fee for us to do that work. It is refunded through the grant, so it comes back to you. And we'll set up financing for that so you can receive the benefits now and pay later. And that ties nicely to what we've talked about up here, isn't it? So the credit and funding program, is it free? No, it's not free. Is there an upfront cost? Yeah, there's a $999 refundable setup fee. However, you don't have to pay it out of pocket. we have financing for that. They might say, well, that's not going to work. I got shitty credit. That's why I'm interested in the credit and funding program. Not a worries. We have many different lenders. We have about 40 different lenders without any hard inquiries that will make offers, funding offers to them. And we have one that will absolutely fund this 100% of the time. We have an agreement with that micro lender. So we've covered the intro as we recommend. We've covered a summary of the benefits. Now, we could spend hours and hours, you and I talking, or hours and hours with the prospect, but let's go ahead and try to move them forward to our call to action. Now, you can decide what you want your call to action to be, but here is what we recommend. So we move on with the script. Let's get you plugged in for better credit and at least $100,000 now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to text you my website link. So pause and script. You want them to have the link to your replicated website. Don't email it to them. I wouldn't say it to them. I would text it to them. So that way they can immediately receive it. You text it to them. You pause for a moment. You confirm they have it. And then we move on to number 2. You don't want them to have to go Google it. You don't want them to go look for it. You want to make it simple. Text it to them. Text it to them. Text it to them. Okay. Number 2, then in less than 5 minutes, I'm going to help you enroll for better credit and at least $100,000 in funding. So obviously you're texting them the link to your replicated site. They're getting that link. You're making sure that they're on the credit and funding page, and we're going to help them enroll. Okay. And they'll be able to enroll right from your site. We don't have to wait for an Adobe to be sent to them. You're going to be on the phone. So you're not pushing them. It's not some sort of hard sell, but you want to be on the phone while they complete that step, ideally. Now, again, I know some of you want to take more of a passive hands-off approach, but if you do this, you'll have a very high level of compliance, a very high level of participation. If you just take a passive approach and just send out your link or just send out the script to a bunch of people, some clients will sign, but not near as many. Then we get to the 3rd step. Then we'll send you the financing application. No worry, guaranteed approval, so you can get the benefits now and pay later. So let's summarize and then open it up for discussions. So today we went through some recommended scripting for the credit and funding program. This is one, we'll say, campaign that you have access to. As a small business consultant, there's different campaigns. There's access to capital. There is the startup program. There's the business accelerator. We talked a lot last week about the $100,000 primary trade line. All of those are different campaigns, different resources. Today, we're talking about the credit and funding program. I think this is one that you should really consider because a lot of people have jacked up credit. They probably know that. And that awareness means that they're probably going to be more receptive to ways to fix it. And you and I have a unique and effective and legal way to fix it. So we went through a brief intro to our training today, but highlighted in yellow is the key premise that if you will assimilate, that you will adopt, then you'll be very successful. It's that most people do not want to have upfront expense. They don't want to have to pay upfront, even if it's cheap, even if it's a good deal. Most people don't want to pay anything up front. So let's eliminate that from being a barrier. And secondly, they want to see the benefits first and then pay later. Let's start showing them value. Let's start giving them results, and they can pay later. So that's the conceptual mindset that we're talking about today. Then we went through the recommended scripting. So with the scripting, we start with an intro. If you want to change it, you can change it. Obviously, you'd use your name, but start with an intro. We like this for the reasons we discussed. If you want to do it different, hey, do it your way. Then ask them the question, would you like a 700 plus credit score and a minimum of 100,000 to start or grow a business? If they say yes, we proceed. If they can't say yes, or at least say, well, I'd like to learn more, there's really no reason to take more of your time or their time. If you're wanting to do texts, this works really well for a text. Wait for them to respond and then pick up the phone ideally and go from there. If you want to take a fully remote approach, you can, but certainly you could text hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people this message, and you would get a lot of responses. So then we move to the benefit explanation. Now, again, remember, on your replicated website, which we provide for free, there's a page for the credit and funding program. Has a nice 5-minute video that shows them instead of just telling them. So that video is, I think, very helpful. But regardless, here's recommended scripting to explain the value proposition. And then our call to action. We strongly recommend this call to action. If you want to do it differently, you can, but this is our strongly recommended call to action. Text them your link. Don't tell it to them. Don't email it to them. Don't sing it to them. Text them your link. Make sure they're on the credit and funding page and help them complete those steps. They can enroll right there. It'll take them a matter of, I don't know, a minute, maybe 2 minutes. Best practice, be on the phone with them while they complete that step. You'll be notified, we'll be notified, and then at that point, we can go ahead and send them the financing application. The financing application is great, no hard inquiries. We can get them funding offers from a number of different sources. And certainly, because I know the concern that you might have is, well, wait. If they sign up on number 2 and they're committed to paying this refundable setup fee, but we're telling them that there's going to be financing, what if they don't get financing for that? Couldn't they be in a tough position? Well, if we didn't have guaranteed approval, you would be right. But we have a fail-safe. We have that micro lender, that nonprofit that reports positive credit to help them. It's a new trade line, right? By them financing, and maybe I should make this more explicit, by them financing the $999 for the credit and funding program, we've already started to deliver. We've already now provided them their first positive trade line, which was part of what we talked about in credit, is that we help them add new positive trade lines. All right, and of course you have our contact us information here. So let's wrap it up with any questions, and then we'll end for today. So we've had a lot of feedback. Jeanette's asking about landing pages. Yeah, we provide landing pages free for small business consultants. If you don't have yours, you can't find it, or it's not working, whatever, just email us and we can resolve that, Jeanette. Alonzo says very clear. Thank you, Alonzo. Alonzo's great. I'm sorry, Alonzo's good opening. Thank you. Eddie asked about debt to income issues. So that is an accurate point, that there's more that goes into a funding approval than just the credit score. That's true. But when we get into business funding, we often won't run into debt to income issues as much, because we can start to project increased income, and we can even help the client increase income, increase bank deposits now, so they have more borrowing capacity. So I'm not dismissing Eddie's point that it's irrelevant, but we have solutions if that's a barrier. Ken asked, do we do credit repair? And no, we don't do credit repair, but our paralegals do in fact remove the negative items, and there's no cost for that. It's part of the credit and funding program, so they don't have to pay for that. Now, again, I don't want to alienate any of you who are credit repair professionals. If you're doing that, you do that, and we won't get in your way, so no concerns. We're not selling credit repair, so we're not competing with you. And then Ken wants to visit offline about some of this, which we're happy to do that, and I can reach out to you, Ken, afterwards. So with that, hopefully this is a helpful training. I think this is a good way for you to go to the market. You should have received this PDF via email from me over the weekend in advance of today's training, so you have it. You can use it if you'd like, and we'll see you back tomorrow morning, same time, same place. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.